There's a photograph of John F. Kennedy from 1962. He's standing on a sailboat in Hyannis Port, sleeves rolled, collar open, looking like a man completely at ease with himself and his place in the world. That image has haunted American menswear for 60 years. And here's what's remarkable. Kennedy wasn't trying to be stylish. He was simply wearing clothes that fit his life. Clothes that moved seamlessly from Senate hearings to weekend sailing, from state dinners to touch football on the lawn. He understood something that most men over 40 eventually discover. True style isn't about following trends. It's about finding your uniform and wearing it with conviction. What Kennedy pioneered was American prep at its most refined. The navy blazer, the Oxford cloth button-down, the penny loafer worn without socks. These weren't fashion statements. They were declarations of identity. They said, I'm serious enough for the boardroom, but relaxed enough for the beach club. The beautiful irony is that Kennedy's style has become more relevant with age. While fashion cycles through extremes, the pieces he championed remain constants. They've transcended their preppy origins to become the foundational wardrobe for any man who wants to look put together without looking like he's trying. This isn't about costume, it's about understanding the principles behind the most influential American style of the 20th century and adapting them for your life today. Let's break down the 10 essential elements of Kennedy style. 1. The navy blazer. The navy blazer was Kennedy's armor. He wore it to press conferences and policy meetings, to casual dinners and campaign stops. It was the one garment that traveled with him everywhere, the piece that could dress up khakis or dress down a formal occasion. And that versatility wasn't accidental, it was strategic. Kennedy understood what every well-dressed man eventually learns. The navy blazer is the great equalizer of menswear. It makes you look authoritative without being stuffy, polished without being pretentious. Pair it with gray flannels and you're ready for business. Throw it over a polo and white jeans and you're ready for summer. But not all blazers are created equal. Kennedy's blazers had a particular character. Soft, natural shoulders that followed the body's contour rather than creating artificial width. Patch pockets that gave a relaxed, almost sport coat-like feel. Brass buttons that caught the light without screaming for attention. The overall effect was a jacket that looked like it belonged at a yacht club, not a corporate boardroom. The key is construction. You want what the Ivy League called a sack silhouette. Minimal padding, easy through the body, not darted or nipped at the waist. The J-Press navy wool doeskin blazer captures this aesthetic perfectly, made in the USA with the same 3-button sack construction that defined Kennedy-era tailoring. Undarted front, natural shoulders, and those signature brass buttons that anchor American prep. Once you own the right navy blazer, you'll understand why Kennedy reached for his constantly. It's the one jacket that never feels like too much or too little. 2. Oxford cloth button-downs. If the navy blazer was Kennedy's armor, the Oxford cloth button-down was his signature. He wore Oxford cloth button-downs constantly, with suits under sweaters, open at the collar on weekends. It was the shirt that said, I'm too busy running the free world to worry about my collar curling up. The button-down collar stayed put. It had its own architecture, its own casual elegance that didn't require fussing. What made Kennedy's Oxfords distinctive was the collar roll. When buttoned, the collar didn't lie flat. It curved gently, creating that soft, undulating shape that separates a true OCBD from a dress shirt with buttons tacked on. This roll happens naturally with properly constructed collars and substantial fabric, and it's the detail that elevates the entire shirt. Kennedy wore his in white and light blue almost exclusively. No patterns, no stripes, just clean, solid colors that photographed beautifully and never distracted from his message. The simplicity was intentional. When you're the most powerful man in the world, you don't need your shirt to make a statement. The labor union Ivy button-down Oxford in white delivers the authentic Ivy aesthetic that Kennedy embodied. True Oxford cloth, proper collar roll, natural shell buttons, and all the details that make a shirt worth wearing for decades, rather than discarding after a season. This piece works everywhere Kennedy needed it to, and everywhere you do too. That's why it remains essential. 3. Slim chinos and flat front trousers. Kennedy helped kill the pleated trouser. While his father's generation swam in full-cut, double-pleated pants with high rises and wide legs, Kennedy preferred clean, flat fronts that skimmed the leg without clinging. The effect was modern, youthful, athletic. Exactly the image he wanted to project to a nation still recovering from the dour Eisenhower years. His khakis were precisely what khakis were designed to be. Military-derived cotton twill in a warm tan shade, sturdy enough for actual use but refined enough for the office. No cargo pockets, no excessive hardware, no gimmicks. Just clean American cotton, well-tailored, in a color that worked with virtually everything in his closet. The flat front was essential. Pleats add visual width and suggest a more formal, traditional approach. Kennedy wanted neither. His trousers sat comfortably at the natural waist, not the hip-hugging low-rise that would come later, but a classic mid-rise that allowed a shirt to tuck cleanly and a belt to sit where it belonged. The break was minimal. Kennedy's trousers were hemmed to show just a whisper of sock when standing, creating a clean vertical line from waist to shoe. This wasn't about fashion, it was about proportion. The J. Crew slim fit chino pant in light graphite embodies this approach completely. Cut and from substantial Italian cotton twill, with a straight leg, flat front, and the kind of military-grade construction that Kennedy's generation appreciated. These are pants with integrity, get the trousers right, and everything above them looks better too. 4. The polo shirt. The Kennedys didn't just wear polo shirts, they owned them. Images from Hyannisport show the entire family in polos, playing touch football, sailing, lounging on the lawn. The polo was their uniform of leisure, the shirt that said, "We're relaxed, but we're still Kennedys." It straddled the line between casual and polished in a way few garments manage. Kennedy's polos were always classic. Short sleeves, 2 or 3 button placket, ribbed collar that stood up properly, rather than flopping like a dish rag. The colors were predominantly navy, white, and light blue, the same restricted palette he applied to his Oxfords. The logos were minimal or non-existent. The fit was relaxed but not sloppy. What elevated Kennedy's polo game was context. He wore them with white trousers and loafers for weekend sailing. He wore them under cashmere cardigans when the evening cooled. He never wore them to look sporty in an artificial way. He wore them because he was actually doing things that required easy movement and breathable fabric. The polo works for men over 40 because it suggests activity without requiring it. It says you could be heading to the tennis court, even if you're actually heading to brunch. But this only works if the polo itself has quality, substantial cotton piqué, clean construction, and a collar that maintains its shape. The Polo Ralph Lauren Classic Fit Mesh Polo in white delivers exactly this. The original that launched 1,000 imitators in breathable cotton mesh with the relaxed cut Kennedy preferred. Sometimes the classic really is the best option. Pair it with chinos and loafers and you've got the Kennedy weekend uniform locked. 5. Penny loafers done right. Kennedy wore Weejuns, not expensive Italian loafers, not fancy Cordovan slip-ons. Bass Weejuns, the original penny loafer, invented in 1936 and adopted immediately by the Ivy League set. By the time Kennedy reached the White House, the Weejun was already American footwear heritage. He just made it presidential. The key to Kennedy's loafer game was how he wore them, often without socks, always with ease, never precious about scuffs or wear. His loafers looked lived in because they were. He wasn't preserving them for special occasions. He was wearing them to sail, to walk the beach, to play with his children. The patina was earned. This sockless approach was revolutionary for its time. It suggested a man comfortable enough with himself to break minor sartorial rules, confident enough to prioritize comfort over convention. The bare ankle became a Kennedy signature copied by prep school kids and politicians alike for decades afterward. The penny loafer works because of its simplicity. No buckles, no tassels, no unnecessary ornamentation, just a clean saddle across the vamp, with that small slot where you could, theoretically, tuck a penny for an emergency phone call. The shape is democratic, equally at home with chinos and with suits. The GH Base Weejuns Larson Penny Loafer in burgundy wine is the original. Hand-stitched leather construction, leather sole, unlined interior. Exactly what Kennedy wore. Exactly what still works today. In that rich burgundy, they bridge casual and formal in a way few shoes can. Master the penny loafer and you've unlocked the footwear Kennedy trusted most. If you're finding this helpful, take a second to subscribe. We break down timeless style principles every week. No trends, no hype. Just clothes that work for men who've outgrown fashion and discovered personal style. Hit that subscribe button and let's continue with sunglasses. 6. Sunglasses, the Aviator and Wayfarer. Kennedy wore 2 styles of sunglasses. Aviators for formal occasions and Wayfarers for everything else. Both choices were distinctly American. The Aviator was developed by Bausch and Lomb for the U.S. Army Air Corps in the 1930s, designed to protect pilots' eyes at high altitude. By Kennedy's era, the Aviator had been adopted by the military establishment, making it the natural choice for a president who wanted to project strength and competence. But Kennedy's Aviators weren't Ray-Bans. He wore American Optical Original Pilots, the actual military-issue sunglasses with gold frames, green glass lenses, and bayonet temples designed to slide easily under a helmet. These were serious glasses for serious people worn by astronauts and fighter pilots. On Kennedy, they suggested command. The Wayfarer told a different story. Introduced by Ray-Ban in 1956, it was the first sunglass designed for style rather than pure function. Kennedy wore them on the campaign trail during family vacations, whenever the mood was more casual than presidential. The slightly chunky acetate frame balanced his narrow face and suggested contemporary design awareness. For men over 40, this dual approach makes sense. The Aviator works with tailored clothing, suggesting authority and tradition. The Wayfarer works with casual wear, suggesting cultural awareness and easy confidence. The American Eagle Retro Pilot sunglasses with green lenses remains the Aviator of choice. Made in the USA to military specifications, 23-karat gold plating, the same glasses that went to the moon with Apollo astronauts. History you can wear, 2 frames, every situation covered. That's the Kennedy approach. 7. The summer suit. Kennedy's summer suits were revelatory. At a time when most politicians sweated through heavy wool year-round, Kennedy appeared in lightweight cotton and linen blends that actually made sense for Washington's swampy summers. He looked cool when everyone else looked miserable. That wasn't vanity, it was strategy. His preferred summer fabric was seersucker and tropical weight cotton. The puckered texture of seersucker creates small air pockets that allow ventilation, while the traditional blue and white stripe reads as crisp and intentional rather than wilted. Kennedy understood that looking put together in summer means choosing fabrics engineered for heat. The construction was minimal. Summer suits need less structure, half-lined or unlined jackets that drape naturally rather than holding rigid shape, patch pockets instead of flat pockets, natural shoulders that don't require padding to maintain form. The goal is a suit that moves with you rather than fighting against the humidity. Kennedy wore his summer suits with the same accessories that defined his cooler weather wardrobe. Penny loafers sockless, simple ties in navy or red, Oxford shirts rather than formal dress shirts. The effect was coherent, clearly the same man, adapted for different conditions. The Todd Snyder striped sport coat is a stretch seersucker that maintains the puckered texture while adding ease of movement. Pair with matching trousers for the full suit, or wear the jacket alone with white jeans for Kennedy-level summer ease. Dress for the weather without surrendering your standards. Kennedy proved it's possible. 8. Crewnecks and cardigans. The Kennedy compound photographs always feature knitwear. Crewneck sweaters pulled over Oxfords, cardigans thrown over polo shirts, cable knit pullovers on chilly sailing mornings. The Kennedy clan understood that quality knitwear extends your wardrobe into all conditions. A good sweater isn't just warmth, it's another layer of style. Kennedy favored crewnecks in solid colors. Navy, gray, camel, burgundy. Nothing patterned, nothing loud. The crewneck worked because it layered seamlessly under his navy blazer or over his Oxford shirts without disrupting the clean lines he cultivated. It added depth to outfits without adding complexity. The cardigans appeared in more casual contexts: sailing, weekend gatherings, moments when a jacket felt too formal but shirt sleeves felt incomplete. Kennedy's cardigans were typically lighter weight, designed for layering rather than primary warmth. They buttoned up the front, often left partially open to show the polo or Oxford beneath. What made Kennedy's knitwear work was quality. Scottish and Irish manufacturers produced sweaters from cashmere and merino wool that held their shape for decades. These weren't disposable basics. They were investments that improved with wearing. The Todd Snyder cashmere crewneck sweater in navy represents the pinnacle of American knitwear. Hand-linked and hand-finished, the kind of quality Kennedy understood and appreciated. This is the sweater that elevates everything you layer it with. Good knitwear multiplies your wardrobe. It's an investment Kennedy made wisely. 9. Watches like Kennedy. Kennedy wore an Omega Seamaster. Not the diving watch that James Bond would later make famous, but an elegant dress watch from 1960, the Omega Seamaster DeVille, given to him by his friend Grant Stockdale on the occasion of his inauguration. It was thin, understated, and sophisticated, with a simple dial and no complications beyond the time and date. This choice was significant. The late 1950s and early 1960s saw American presidents wearing American watches as a matter of patriotic principle. Kennedy broke with tradition by wearing a Swiss timepiece, prioritizing quality and design over symbolism. The Omega was simply the better watch. What defined Kennedy's horological taste was restraint. His Seamaster had a round case of modest diameter, a clean white dial with simple indices, and a leather strap rather than a metal bracelet. It was a watch designed to tell time elegantly, not to announce its presence on the wrist. This approach remains relevant. For men over 40, the watch is often the most significant piece of jewelry worn daily. It should reflect your values, quality construction, timeless design, appropriate scale. The watch that tries too hard announces insecurity. The watch that's quietly excellent suggests confidence. The Omega Seamaster in its vintage-inspired iterations captures Kennedy's horological philosophy perfectly. The heritage models maintain the clean, understated elegance he preferred, Swiss excellence without Swiss excess. The right watch tells more than time. It tells people who you are. 10. Understated accessories. Kennedy's accessory philosophy was simple: less is more. His belts were plain leather in brown or black, matching his shoes as convention demanded. His ties were silk in navy, red, or regimental stripe. Never novelty patterns, never bold graphics, never anything that pulled focus from his face and his words. His pocket squares, when worn, were simple white linen folded flat. Every accessory served a function. None existed purely for decoration. This restraint was intentional. Kennedy understood that as president, he was the message, his face, his voice, his ideas. The clothes supported that message without competing with it. A loud tie or statement belt would have distracted from what mattered. Quiet accessories kept the attention where it belonged. The belt is particularly important. Kennedy wore thin dress belts with simple buckles, sized appropriately so they didn't create bulk under his jackets. The leather matched his shoes in color family: brown with burgundy loafers, black with black Oxfords. This coordination wasn't obsessive, it was simply correct. Tie bars appeared occasionally, positioned between the third and fourth button of his shirt, holding the tie gently against his chest without drawing attention. No tie chains, no collar pins, no lapel pins beyond official insignia when protocol required. The Trafalgar Broderick leather dress belt in black exemplifies this philosophy, handcrafted in Spain from full-grain leather with a simple nickel buckle. No logos, no excessive stitching, no attempts at personality, just a beautifully made belt that does its job quietly. Restraint is the final lesson. Master it, and everything else works. Kennedy's style endures because it was never really about Kennedy. It was about principles, quality over quantity, fit over fashion, coherence over statement making. He built a wardrobe of pieces that worked together: navy blazer, Oxford shirts, khaki trousers, penny loafers, and he wore them with the confidence of a man who had more important things to think about than what he was wearing. That's the real lesson for men over 40. You don't need a revolutionary wardrobe, you need a deliberate one. You need pieces that work, that fit your life, that allow you to walk into any room and focus on what matters rather than worrying about whether you're dressed appropriately. Kennedy's uniform worked on a sailboat and in the Oval Office, at press conferences and family picnics. It worked because it was genuine, an honest expression of American ease and quiet confidence. The navy blazer and Oxford shirt don't care about trends. The penny loafer and khaki chino don't expire. These pieces have worked for nearly a century because they address fundamental questions. How do I look put together without looking uncomfortable? How do I project competence without projecting pretension? Kennedy answered those questions. His answers still work today. Start with the blazer, add the Oxford, find your loafers, build from there. The goal isn't to look like Kennedy, it's to find your own version of what he found. A wardrobe that works so well you never have to think about it again. That's when style really begins. If this resonated with you, make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss our future guides. And for your next step, I'd recommend watching the next video on the screen. It builds perfectly on what we've covered today.